The scent of lilies, usually a comforting aroma that permeated our home, felt cloying tonight. They were Amelia's favorite, a constant fixture in the vase on the dining table, but tonight, they seemed to amplify the silence that had settled between us. It wasn't a hostile silence, not precisely, more like a thick, unyielding fog that muffled every word, every gesture. We'd been married for 12 years, a tapestry woven with shared laughter, quiet evenings, and the comfortable rhythm of daily life, or so I thought. Lately, though, a dissonance had crept into our melody, a subtle off-key note that I couldn't quite place. I watched Amelia as she moved about the kitchen, her movements precise, almost mechanical. She was preparing dinner, a task she usually performed with a cheerful hum, a flourish of spices, a shared smile. Tonight, her back was to me, her shoulders rigid, her expression obscured by the cascade of her auburn hair. I tried to recall the precise moment the change had begun, the exact inflection in her voice or the subtle flicker in her eyes that had signaled this shift. But it was like trying to grasp smoke, ephemeral, elusive. We'd always been open with each other, our communication a cornerstone of our relationship. Yet, lately, conversations felt strained, like wading through a field of unseen obstacles. I'd ask about her day, about the intricacies of her work at the art gallery, and she'd respond with clipped sentences, her eyes darting away, her usual enthusiasm absent. The small, almost imperceptible details started to accumulate. The late nights at the gallery, the whispered phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room, the new, expensive perfume that lingered in the air, a scent I didn't recognize. I'd dismissed them initially, attributing them to stress, to a demanding new project at work. But a nagging unease persisted, a growing suspicion that something was amiss, something hidden beneath the veneer of normalcy. Tonight, the silence was particularly heavy. I poured myself a glass of water, the clinking of the ice against the glass sounding unnaturally loud in the quiet kitchen. I watched Amelia, her silhouette framed by the warm glow of the kitchen light, and a cold dread began to settle in my stomach. The lilies, once a symbol of our shared joy, now felt like a silent, accusing audience. The following day, the unease that had taken root within me blossomed into full-fledged suspicion. Amelia announced she had a late meeting at the gallery, a new exhibit that required her attention. It wasn't unusual for her to work late, but the frequency of these late nights had increased dramatically in recent weeks. A knot of anxiety tightened in my chest. I decided to trust my instincts, a decision that would irrevocably alter the course of our lives. Instead of heading home after work, I found myself driving towards the gallery, a sense of foreboding weighing heavily on me. I parked across the street, the gallery's brightly lit windows a stark contrast to the encroaching darkness. I watched as people milled about, admiring the artwork, their faces illuminated by the strategically placed spotlights. Then I saw her. Amelia stood near the back of the gallery, engaged in conversation with a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, with dark hair and an air of confidence that bordered on arrogance. But it wasn't his appearance that caught my attention. It was the way Amelia looked at him. Her eyes, usually reserved for me, held a spark of something I hadn't seen in years, a mixture of admiration, excitement, and a raw, undeniable attraction. They laughed together, their bodies leaning in, their hands brushing against each other with an intimacy that sent a jolt of icy fear through my veins. I watched them for what felt like an eternity, each shared glance, each whispered word a hammer blow to the foundation of my world. The fog of uncertainty had lifted, replaced by a stark, brutal reality. My wife, the woman I loved, was involved with another man. As the gallery began to empty, they moved closer to the entrance, their conversation growing more hushed, more intimate. I ducked down in my seat, my heart pounding in my ears, a wave of nausea washing over me. I saw them step out onto the sidewalk, his hand lingering on her arm, her head tilted towards him. Her lips curved into a smile that was meant for him, not me. They hailed a cab, and as they disappeared into the night, I felt a part of me die. The man in the gallery, the recipient of her smiles and her touch, was no stranger. I recognized him from Amelia's descriptions, from the casual mentions in her conversations. He was Julian, the gallery owner, her boss. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. The late nights, the whispered phone calls, the expensive perfume, it all made sense now. I sat in my car, the engine idling, the streetlights casting long, eerie shadows. The world around me seemed to have shifted on its axis, familiar landmarks appearing distorted, alien. The betrayal was profound, a gaping wound that tore through the fabric of my life. And as I drove home through the deserted streets, a chilling resolve began to take hold. I would not let this go unpunished. I would have my revenge. The following days were a masterclass in deception. I returned home, feigning exhaustion from work, masking the turmoil raging within me. I played the role of the unsuspecting husband, the loving partner, with a chilling precision. I knew I couldn't confront Amelia immediately. I needed to gather information, to understand the extent of their relationship, to devise a plan. Amelia, perhaps sensing a shift in my demeanor, became overly attentive. She'd prepare my favorite meals, ask about my day with exaggerated concern, and initiate physical contact, a desperate attempt to reassure herself, or perhaps to assuage her guilt. Her actions were transparent, a thin veneer of normalcy that did little to conceal the underlying deceit. I observed her closely, noting every subtle change in her behavior, every whispered phone call, every furtive glance at her phone. I tracked her movements, learning her routines, her patterns. I discovered she was meeting Julian during her lunch breaks, at a small, secluded cafe a few blocks from the gallery. They would linger for hours, their conversations hushed, their body language intimate. I even managed to access her phone, a breach of trust one justified as necessary. I scrolled through her messages, a digital record of their affair, a chronicle of stolen moments and whispered affections. The words stung, each message a fresh wound, a confirmation of the betrayal that had shattered my world. The image of them together, their laughter, their shared intimacy, played on a loop in my mind, a constant, agonizing reminder of my humiliation. The anger simmered beneath the surface, a volatile mix of rage and despair. But I kept it contained, a carefully controlled inferno, waiting for the opportune moment to erupt. I began to meticulously document everything. I kept a journal, recording every detail, every conversation, every observation. I photographed their meetings, capturing their stolen moments, their illicit affection. I collected evidence, building a case, a testament to their betrayal. I knew I couldn't resort to violence, to physical confrontation. That would only validate their actions, give them the satisfaction of seeing me unravel. My revenge would be more subtle, more calculated, a slow, deliberate dismantling of their world. I would use their own deceit against them, turn their betrayal into a weapon, and expose their lies for all to see. The facade of normalcy would be maintained until the moment I chose to shatter it, and when that moment arrived, the consequences would be devastating. My plan began to take shape, a carefully orchestrated strategy designed to sow discord and mistrust between Amelia and Julian. I started with subtle hints, planting seeds of doubt in Amelia's mind about Julian's sincerity. I'd casually mention seeing him with another woman, a fabricated encounter designed to ignite her jealousy. I'd remark on his reputation as a notorious flirt, a master manipulator who used his charm to seduce unsuspecting women. At first, Amelia dismissed my insinuations, her trust in Julian seemingly unshakable. But as the weeks passed, the seeds of doubt I had planted began to take root. I noticed a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes, a hesitation in her voice when she spoke about him. The late-night phone calls became shorter, the lunchtime meetings less frequent. I continued to fuel her suspicions, dropping hints about Julian's financial instability, his questionable business dealings, his history of broken relationships. I painted a picture of a man who was not to be trusted, a man who was using her for his own gain. Simultaneously, I began to subtly undermine Julian's confidence in Amelia. I'd send anonymous emails to his gallery, praising his artistic vision while subtly suggesting that Amelia was hindering his success. I'd leave cryptic messages on his voicemail, hinting at Amelia's growing dissatisfaction with their relationship. I played both sides, manipulating their emotions, fueling their insecurities, driving a wedge between them. I watched as their relationship began to unravel, the initial passion replaced by suspicion and mistrust. The stolen glances became less frequent, the laughter replaced by strained silences, the intimate touches replaced by awkward formality. The satisfaction I derived from their growing discord was bittersweet. It was a perverse pleasure, a dark satisfaction born out of pain and betrayal. But it wasn't enough. I wanted more. I wanted them to experience the same agony I had endured, the same sense of loss, the same crushing realization that their world had been built on lies. The stage was set, the pieces in place. The final act of my revenge was about to unfold, a carefully orchestrated climax that would expose their betrayal and leave them with nothing but regret and remorse. With their relationship teetering on the brink of collapse, I decided to deliver the final blow. I carefully crafted an anonymous package, a seemingly innocuous gift designed to expose their affair and shatter any remaining trust between them. I chose a beautiful, antique locket, a delicate piece of jewelry that would appeal to Amelia's artistic sensibilities. Inside the locket, I placed a small, carefully folded note. The note contained a single sentence, a devastating truth that would unravel their carefully constructed web of lies. I know about you and Julian. I had the package delivered to our home, addressed to Amelia. I knew she would assume it was from Julian, a romantic gesture, a token of his affection. But the message inside would reveal a different reality, a reality of deceit and betrayal. The day the package arrived, I feigned ignorance, watching as Amelia opened it with a mixture of excitement and anticipation. Her face fell as she read the note, the blood draining from her cheeks, her eyes widening in horror. The locket slipped from her grasp, clattering onto the floor, the sound echoing through the silent house. I watched her closely, observing her reaction, savoring her distress. She was caught in a web of her own making, her lies exposed, her betrayal laid bare. The facade of normalcy she had so carefully maintained crumbled before my eyes, replaced by a raw, unfiltered panic. She confronted Julian, accusing him of sending the note, of trying to sabotage their relationship. He denied any involvement, his voice laced with indignation, his eyes filled with a mixture of confusion and fear. The seeds of doubt I had planted had taken root, their relationship poisoned by suspicion and mistrust. Their arguments became more frequent, more intense. The passion that had once fueled their affair dissipated, replaced by bitterness and resentment. They accused each other of betrayal, of infidelity, of lying. The bond between them, once so strong, fractured beyond repair. I watched from the sidelines, a silent observer, as their relationship imploded. The satisfaction I felt was profound, a vindication of the pain and humiliation I had endured. Their world was crumbling, their happiness shattered, their trust betrayed. And I, the architect of their downfall, reveled in their misery. The time had come to reveal my hand, to step out from the shadows and expose my role in their downfall. I chose a public setting, a charity gala hosted by the art gallery, an event attended by prominent figures in the art world, including Julian's wealthy patrons and influential colleagues. I arrived at the gala alone, Amelia and Julian arriving separately, their strained relationship evident in their stiff body language and forced smiles. I watched as they mingled with the guests, their eyes darting nervously, their conversations stilted and awkward. As the evening progressed, I took to the stage, a microphone in my hand, a spotlight illuminating my figure. The room fell silent, the guests turning their attention towards me, their faces a mixture of curiosity and anticipation. I began by thanking the gallery for hosting the event, praising Julian's artistic vision and his contributions to the art world. Then, I paused, my gaze sweeping across the room, settling on Amelia and Julian, their faces pale, their eyes wide with apprehension. However, I continued, my voice steady. There is another side to Julian, a side that is not so admirable, a side that is hidden behind a facade of charm and sophistication. I proceeded to detail their affair, revealing their secret meetings, their stolen moments, their illicit affection. I described the locket, the note, the seeds of doubt I had planted, the web of lies I had woven. The room erupted in gasps and murmurs, the guests stunned by my revelations. Amelia and Julian stood frozen, their faces contorted in a mixture of shame and disbelief. Their carefully constructed world, their carefully guarded secrets, were laid bare for all to see. I watched as their reputations crumbled before their eyes, their social standing shattered, their careers jeopardized. The whispers started, the judgmental glances, the ostracization. They were pariahs, outcasts, their betrayal exposed, their trust violated. The satisfaction I felt was immense, a wave of vindication washing over me. I had exposed their lies, shattered their happiness, and destroyed their reputations. They had paid the price for their betrayal, a price that was both public and humiliating. As I left the gala, the whispers following me, I felt a sense of closure. My revenge was complete. I had played the long game and I had won. The fallout from the gala was swift and brutal. News of Amelia and Julian's affair spread like wildfire, fueled by gossip and speculation. The art world, a small and insular community, turned its back on them, their reputations tarnished beyond repair. Julian's gallery, once a thriving hub of creativity and commerce, suffered a significant decline in patronage. His wealthy clients, appalled by his indiscretions, withdrew their support, their investments drying up. His reputation as a respected art dealer was shattered, his career in ruins. Amelia faced a similar fate. Her colleagues at the gallery, once friendly and supportive, now shunned her, their whispers following her like a shadow. Her position at the gallery became untenable, her resignation inevitable. Their social circle, once a source of comfort and companionship, disintegrated. Their friends, caught in the crossfire of their betrayal, distanced themselves, unwilling to take sides. They were left isolated, ostracized, their once vibrant lives reduced to a lonely existence. The consequences extended beyond their professional and social circles. Their families, shocked and disappointed by their actions, struggled to come to terms with the betrayal. The trust that had once bound them together was broken, replaced by suspicion and resentment. Amelia and Julian's relationship, already strained by my manipulations, imploded under the weight of public scrutiny and condemnation. The passion that had once fueled their affair evaporated, replaced by bitterness and recrimination. They turned on each other, their arguments escalating into vicious accusations and hurtful insults. Their once shared dreams, their plans for a future together, dissolved into a bitter reality of broken promises and shattered illusions. The affair that had promised excitement and fulfillment had brought them nothing but pain, humiliation, and regret. I watched from a distance, a silent observer, as their lives unraveled. The satisfaction I had felt at the gala gradually gave way to a sense of emptiness. My revenge, though successful, had left me hollow, a shell of my former self. The pain of betrayal lingered, a constant ache in my heart. The trust one had placed in Amelia, the love I had felt for her, were gone, replaced by a deep sense of loss and disillusionment. The aftermath of my revenge was a bitter victory, a Pyrrhic triumph that had left me scarred and alone. Weeks turned into months, and the initial frenzy surrounding the scandal gradually subsided. Life settled into a new, unfamiliar rhythm. I focused on my work, throwing myself into my career, seeking solace in the familiar routine. The pain of betrayal remained, a dull ache that refused to fade, but I learned to live with it, to compartmentalize it, to push it to the back of my mind. One afternoon, as I was leaving my office, I spotted a familiar figure across the street. It was Amelia. She looked thinner, her face drawn, her eyes shadowed with fatigue. She was no longer the vibrant, confident woman I had once known. The affair, the scandal, the public humiliation had taken their toll. I hesitated, unsure whether to approach her. A part of me wanted to confront her, to demand an explanation, to express the anger and hurt that still simmered within me. But another part of me, a weary, resigned part, simply wanted to avoid any further confrontation, to move on with my life. As I debated with myself, Amelia looked up, her eyes meeting mine across the crowded street. A flicker of recognition crossed her face, followed by a wave of sadness and regret. She started to walk towards me, her steps hesitant, her expression uncertain. I stood rooted to the spot, my heart pounding in my chest, a mixture of emotions swirling within me. As she approached, I saw the toll that the past months had taken on her. The sparkle in her eyes was gone, replaced by a dullness that mirrored my own. "Hello," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Amelia," I replied, my voice hoarse. We stood in silence for a moment, the weight of our shared history hanging heavy between us. The bustling city street faded into the background, the noise and commotion replaced by an oppressive quiet. I just wanted to apologize," she said, her voice trembling. "For everything." I looked at her, searching her face for any sign of insincerity, any hint of manipulation. But all I saw was genuine remorse, a deep sadness that mirrored my own. "I know I hurt you," she continued, her eyes welling up with tears. "I betrayed your trust, and I destroyed our marriage. I'm so sorry." Her words, spoken with such raw emotion, pierced through my defenses. The anger and resentment that had been festering within me began to dissipate, replaced by a wave of sadness and compassion. I realized that Amelia, like me, was a victim of her own choices, her own mistakes. The affair, the scandal, the public humiliation had left her broken, her life in shambles. In that moment, standing on the crowded city street, I felt a flicker of empathy for the woman who had once been my wife. The desire for revenge, the need for retribution, faded into insignificance. All that remained was a shared sense of loss, a mutual understanding of the pain and devastation that betrayal can bring. The unexpected encounter with Amelia left me reeling. The raw vulnerability in her apology, the palpable regret in her eyes, stirred something within me. The anger that had been a constant companion for months began to dissipate, replaced by a profound sadness and a surprising surge of empathy. We stood on that busy street corner, two souls adrift in the wreckage of our shared past, a past that now seemed both distant and achingly familiar. The noise of the city faded, replaced by the quiet hum of our shared grief. I began, my voice catching in my throat. "I don't know what to say." Amelia nodded, tears tracing a path down her cheeks. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she whispered. "I just wanted you to know how truly sorry I am." Her honesty disarmed me. The carefully constructed walls I had erected around my heart began to crumble. I saw her not as the woman who had betrayed me, but as a flawed human being, capable of making mistakes, just like myself. I was hurt, I admitted, my voice thick with emotion, and angry. "I wanted you to feel the same pain that you inflicted on me." Amelia's eyes widened in surprise. "You did." I nodded, recalling the elaborate scheme I had orchestrated, the calculated steps I had taken to destroy her life and Julian's. "But seeing you now," I trailed off, unable to articulate the complex emotions swirling within me. "I understand," she said softly. "I deserve everything that happened." There was a long silence, filled only by the sounds of the city. We stood facing each other, two strangers bound by the ghost of a love that had been shattered. "How are you?" I finally asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Amelia's lips trembled. "I'm not okay," she admitted. "I lost my job, my friends, my family, and Julian." The mention of his name brought a fresh wave of pain, but it was different now, less sharp, less consuming. It was the pain of loss, not the burning agony of betrayal. "He left?" I asked, surprised. Amelia nodded. "After the gala, he blamed me for everything. Said I ruined his life." A bitter laugh escaped her lips. "He never even apologized." I felt a surge of anger towards Julian, but it was quickly tempered by a sense of pity. He, too, was a victim of his own actions, his life irrevocably altered by the choices he had made. We stood in silence for a while longer, the weight of our shared experience pressing down on us. Then, Amelia took a step back, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and gratitude. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely audible, "for talking to me." "Amelia," I began, but she shook her head. "I should go," she said, turning away. "Goodbye." I watched as she walked away, her figure disappearing into the crowd. As I stood there, alone on the bustling street corner, a strange sense of peace settled over me. The encounter with Amelia, unexpected and emotionally charged, had brought a sense of closure, a realization that forgiveness, even without reconciliation, was possible. The days following my encounter with Amelia were filled with introspection. I found myself replaying our conversation, analyzing her words, her expressions, searching for clues to her true feelings. The anger and resentment that had consumed me for so long had subsided, replaced by a melancholic sense of loss and a growing understanding of the complexities of human relationships. I thought about the choices we had made, the mistakes we had both committed. I recognized my own role in the breakdown of our marriage, the emotional distance I had created, the lack of communication that had allowed the seeds of resentment to take root. The affair, though a devastating betrayal, was ultimately a symptom of a deeper problem, a fissure in the foundation of our relationship that had been widening for years. We had both been complicit in the slow erosion of our love, our connection, our shared dreams. A wave of regret washed over me. I wished I had been more attentive, more communicative, more present in our marriage. I wished I had recognized the signs of Amelia's unhappiness, her growing dissatisfaction with our life together. Perhaps, if I had been more attuned to her needs, more responsive to her emotional cues, the affair could have been avoided. But regret, like revenge, was a bitter pill to swallow. It offered no solace, no solutions, only a painful reminder of what had been lost. I knew I couldn't change the past, but I could learn from it. I could use this experience to grow, to evolve, to become a better version of myself. I began to focus on my own healing, on rebuilding my life, on rediscovering my own identity. I reconnected with old friends, pursued new hobbies, and sought therapy to help me process the trauma of betrayal and the emotional roller coaster of revenge. The journey was not easy. There were days when the pain of loss was overwhelming, when the memories of our shared past haunted me, when the anger and resentment threatened to resurface. But I persevered, drawing strength from the lessons I had learned, the insights I had gained. I realized that forgiveness, though a difficult and often painful process, was essential for my own well-being. Forgiving Amelia, and ultimately myself, was not about condoning her actions or absolving her of responsibility. It was about releasing the burden of anger and resentment, about freeing myself from the shackles of the past. As I embarked on this journey of healing and self-discovery, I knew that the road ahead would be long and challenging. But I also knew that I was not alone. I had the support of friends, family, and a therapist who helped me navigate the complexities of grief, loss, and forgiveness. And as I looked towards the future, I felt a glimmer of hope, a sense of possibility. The pain of betrayal would always be a part of my story, but it would no longer define me. I would emerge from the ashes of my past, stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. Time, the great healer, gradually softened the sharp edges of my pain. The memories of Amelia and the betrayal, though still present, no longer held the same power over me. I had learned to accept the past, to forgive and to move forward. My career flourished. The dedication and focus I had poured into my work paid off, leading to promotions and new opportunities. I found satisfaction in my accomplishments, a sense of purpose that helped fill the void left by the collapse of my marriage. My social life also blossomed. I reconnected with old friends and made new ones, forging meaningful connections that enriched my life. I discovered new interests and passions, exploring hobbies and activities that brought me joy and fulfillment. One evening, while attending a photography exhibition, I met a woman named Clara. She was an artist, her work a vibrant expression of her unique perspective and creative spirit. We struck up a conversation, drawn together by a shared appreciation for art and a mutual curiosity about the world. Clara was kind, intelligent, and compassionate, She had a warm smile and a contagious laugh that lit up the room. We spent hours talking, sharing our stories, our dreams, our vulnerabilities. I found myself drawn to her authenticity, her genuine interest in me, her ability to see beyond the scars of my past. As we got to know each other better, I began to feel a spark, a flicker of attraction that had been dormant for so long. Clara was different from Amelia in many ways, but she possessed a similar zest for life, a passion for creativity, and a deep capacity for empathy. Our relationship developed slowly, cautiously. We were both wary of repeating past mistakes, of rushing into something before we were truly ready. But with each passing day, our connection deepened, our trust grew, our love blossomed. Clara knew about my past, about the betrayal, the revenge, the pain. She listened patiently, offering support and understanding without judgment. She helped me to see that my experiences, though painful, had made me stronger, more resilient, more compassionate. With Clara, I felt a sense of peace, a sense of belonging that I had never experienced before. She accepted me for who I was, flaws and all, and she encouraged me to embrace my vulnerability, to let go of the past, and to open my heart to love again. Our relationship was not without its challenges. There were moments of insecurity, of doubt, of fear, but we faced them together, communicating openly and honestly, learning from our mistakes, and supporting each other through thick and thin. With Clara, I rediscovered the joy of companionship, the comfort of shared laughter, the intimacy of vulnerability. I learned to trust again, to love again, to believe in the possibility of a happy ending. And as I looked towards the future, I felt a sense of gratitude, a sense of hope. The pain of the past had not been in vain. It had led me to Clara, to a love that was stronger, deeper, and more fulfilling than anything I had ever known. Life with Clara was a balm to my wounded soul. We built a life together, filled with laughter, love, and shared adventures. The pain of the past gradually receded, replaced by a sense of contentment and gratitude. However, the shadows of my history with Amelia occasionally crept into my present, reminding me of the fragility of trust and the enduring power of betrayal. One afternoon, while browsing in a bookstore, I stumbled upon a familiar name, Julian. He had published a memoir, a thinly veiled account of his life, his career, and his tumultuous relationship with Amelia. Curiosity, and perhaps a touch of morbid fascination, compelled me to purchase the book. I devoured the memoir in a single sitting, my emotions a turbulent mix of anger, sadness, and disbelief. Julian portrayed himself as a victim, a man wronged by a manipulative and deceitful woman. He painted Amelia as the villain, the instigator of the affair, the destroyer of his reputation. His account of the events was distorted, self-serving, and utterly devoid of remorse. He glossed over his own role in the betrayal, his own responsibility for the pain and suffering he had caused. He conveniently omitted any mention of his callous behavior towards Amelia in the aftermath of the scandal, his abandonment of her when she needed him most. Reading Julian's memoir reopened old wounds, rekindling the anger and resentment I had worked so hard to overcome. It was a stark reminder of the manipulative nature of the man who had once been my friend, the man who had betrayed my trust and shattered my life. I felt a surge of protectiveness towards Amelia, a desire to defend her against Julian's lies and distortions. Despite the pain she had caused me, I couldn't bear to see her further victimized by his self-serving narrative. I considered confronting Julian, exposing his lies, setting the record straight. But I quickly realized that engaging with him would only drag me back into the mire of the past, reawakening the demons I had fought so hard to quell. Instead, I chose to focus on my present, on the love and happiness I had found with Clara. I shared my feelings with her, expressing my anger and frustration at Julian's memoir, my concern for Amelia's well-being. Clara listened patiently, offering support and understanding. She reminded me that Julian's memoir was just one version of the story, a distorted and self-serving account that did not reflect the full truth. She encouraged me to let go of the anger, to focus on my own healing, and to cherish the love we had built together. Her words brought comfort and perspective. I realized that dwelling on the past, on Julian's lies and manipulations, would only serve to poison my present. I needed to let go, to move on, to embrace the happiness I had found. And so, I closed the book on Julian's memoir, both literally and metaphorically. I chose to focus on my own story, on the love and happiness I had found with Clara, on the future we were building together. The shadows of the past might linger, but they would no longer have the power to dim the light of my present.